Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Born Political. My guest tonight, and again, we've had the gamut. We have local business folks, we've had politicians, school teachers. We've run the gamut. Tonight is very special. We have two retired Navy personnel, which in their retirement have also continued to serve the community. I've been able to hook up with them. We're working on the Groton Sail Foundation. We're going to talk about that a little, but we're going to meet our guest first tonight. We have John Padgett, who's a Rear Admiral retired, and Edwin Bud Atkins, a retired Command Master Chief. We're going to learn what those things mean maybe a little bit, dig in, but then we're going to finish up with the Groton Sail and talk about the exciting things that are happening in Groton. Welcome to the show, guys. Welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you guys.
Thank you.
So like I told you off air, the show usually is about just the guest, and then we talk about very little about what we're doing at the time, but I think it's very important that people know who we're talking, and especially relating to this project. So if you want to start a little bit about your experience, I know we'll talk about your Navy experience maybe, and even that you were a local, because I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, my father was also a submarine officer in the Navy, and when I was in high school, we were stationed here, and we lived in Gales Ferry, and back then it was before the Ledyard High School was in full force, and so the folks from Gales Ferry went to high school up at the Norwich Free Academy. So I graduated from the Norwich Free Academy in 1965, and then headed down to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
I don't want to interrupt. Was that pre-planned for you? Your dad was in the Navy, and then
to be honest with you, the three types of individuals I respected the most were preachers and sports coaches and naval officers. And I knew I didn't have the moral stamina to be a good preacher. And I figured, I probably wasn't going to be an award-winning coach, but I probably could do an adequate job as a naval officer. And I really thought being on a submarine would be a great, great thing. So went down to the Naval Academy, had a year after I graduated from the Naval Academy where I went to graduate school and got a master's degree at Georgia Tech, and then started the nuclear power pipeline, first in Vallejo, California for 6 months of school, and then at a prototype in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and then came back to New London for submarine school, and then reported to my first submarine in Pearl Harbor, an attack submarine out of Pearl, USS Puffer. I then had a fairly normal tour, went from being a division officer, department head, executive officer, then I had command of the USS Omaha, again, an attack submarine out of Pearl Harbor. Came back then to the Pentagon, where I worked on the OpNav staff. And then from the Pentagon, I went out to Strategic Command in Omaha, Nebraska. And then from Omaha, I came back to Washington to be at the Pentagon again on the OpNav staff. And then had a tour at the Naval Academy as a Commandant of Midshipmen. I was the squadron commander in San Diego for Squadron 11 for, again, an attack submarine squadron. And then I came back to Group 2 here to be the group commander in the late 1990s. And my daughter then graduated from Ledyard High School. And then we went to Pearl Harbor, where I was commander of Submarine Force Pacific until I retired. And then after I retired, I was looking around, and I'd never lived anywhere before, so I didn't have any geographical constraints.
Yep.
And Electric Boat was a great company with whom I'd worked before. So I came back and I took a position with Electric Boat for about 8 years, and then retired from there, and now I was the president of the Submarine League, the Naval Submarine League, for about 7 years, and then now I'm pretty much retired doing consulting and working on the Groton Sail Foundation.
You're definitely doing that, and if you want to make, now I feel bad. I feel like I haven't done anything in my life. To go down that long list, now that happened in how many years of service? How long were you in the Navy for?
It was 34 years of active service, not counting the Naval Academy, and then 10 years with EB pretty much, and then after that, I'm pretty old.
And did your father get to see you progress through? I know you said your dad was in the service, and he retired. Did he retire from the Navy? Or
He
was
retired as a Navy captain, worked for Hughes Aircraft for a couple of years, and then he passed away before I went to command.
Okay.
So that was disappointing, but my mom lived to be ripe old age of 96, so she was there to
I'm sure she
attend-
was a
attend.
good step in. I'm sure he must be really, really proud. I'm sure he would have loved to see any of those. You're proud to see your kids do anything, but to follow your footsteps in sort of way, and then even surpass where you ended up in your retirement. I think it'd be very humbling for your father to know.
Well, certainly my father was a wonderful role model for me growing up.
Yep.
And again, as I say, one of the things that drew me to the Navy was the leadership that everybody had to demonstrate from the very top to the very bottom, and the support and the camaraderie within the submarine force, I think, is really unique in all military services.
Yeah. And now, Bud, to you. Where did you start off at? You said you weren't from here, which
I'm from Wisconsin, and I joined the National Guards in 1949 when I was 15 years old.
National Guard you started at.
And
And
then
you asked them if they had submarines in the National Guard, and they told you no.
and then I missed a few meetings, so then I spent 4 years in the National Guards, got out, and I got my draft notice, so I said, I'm going to go in the Navy. So I went in the Navy, and in boot camp, I decided, well, I don't want to dig foxholes anymore. So then I went in submarines, and my first submarines was Oahu out of Pearl. And then I did my 4 years, got out, went back to college. And then couldn't live on $120 a month, so I came back in the Navy, went on a Corsair and a Conger, made a Great Lakes St. Lawrence trip. We came into Great Lakes in the summertime. And went to Milwaukee, Duluth, Cleveland, Bay City, Michigan. And then from there I put the Sculpin in commission. From the Sculpin, I put the Daniel Webster in commission at EB, got off of her, made a few patrols, got on the Francis Scott Key, made a few patrols, went to sub school as a nuclear weapons instructor, and then from there I went to chief of the boat at the Kamehameha. Came off the Kamehameha, went to Group 2 as a staff command master chief, left there, went as chief of the boat of the Michigan, and I didn't do a good enough job there. They sent me back on the Alabama, put that in commission. Then I went to Group 9 out of Bangor to be the command master chief out there, where I retired with about 40 years of service.
That's it, huh? So you quit after 40 years.
Quit
That's
after 40 years, and now I've been working on the project, the Groton Sail project, for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's going to come to an end shortly.
Yeah, but we are hoping, right? That will end with a beautiful project in the end.
Right.
So you went to high school in Midwest. It sounds like.
Sure did. Went Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
And was your father military, or what made you want to join?
My father was National Guards when they had horses. He was from Canada, and he was in World War II with the Canadian Army.
Wow.
And then I had brothers. My 3 brothers were in. One was a colonel in the engineers. Another one was a paratrooper. And another one was just a plain old Army grunt.
That's it, huh?
And so I said, I'm going to join the Navy. So.
Well, I think it's really important to see that connection. A lot of times you'll see a son following a father's footsteps. That happened in both cases with both of you guys. I'm an Army brat. I was born in Germany, so my father was out and about, and I didn't follow in anyone's footsteps that way. I ended up going to construction. But I think what's important to know, not just because we are working on the sale, to hear your emphasis in these meetings, because once I became part of the committee, how you really wanted to emphasize it was the maintenance, that it was the building, because you folks sail these submarines that you trust your life in, and to come away and then be part of EB and understand what it means to build something where people are really counting on, and this sail foundation and this monument is to everybody. everyone involved. And I think that you've said it best in these meetings. I'll let you
Well,
say it now.
it absolutely is. I think that I would argue that there's no more demanding engineering challenge than to design and build a nuclear-powered submarine. And the fact that the United States, in the person of Electric Boat and Newport News, does it with such skill that people think it's probably pretty easy.
Yeah.
And it is not easy. It requires a tremendous amount of discipline. And so the designers and the builders of a warship that from the moment it submerges, the enemy is really the pressure on the hull. So the moment you submerge, the enemy is around you. And that thing has got to operate safely. And so in order to operate safely, you have to have a very well-trained crew. And when you come in from sea, you have to have people who can maintain the ship in such a way as to keep it operationally capable. I think it's also important to remember that when you're on your submarine and you're deployed, you don't get nightly phone calls home. You'll get a message every once in a while telling you that everything's okay. And so to have the families, to recognize the effort that the families have is terribly important. Yep. And also the communities that support the families, the schools, the churches, the grocery stores, all those things. And so this monument is really to celebrate the designers and the builders, the operators and the maintainers, and the families and the communities that support them. That aggregation is terribly important and is a key ingredient to the success of the submarine force.
I think and I've interviewed a lot of people, and I work with the Navy. As a state legislator, we trying to work with families, and being on the council, I understand the challenges that just this town in Groton, if you drive 10 minutes in either direction away, they don't face the same challenges we do. And I call them challenges, but they're just something that it's part of our fabric, and that is making sure that we support families, knowing that mom or dad are gone for 6 months. And what is different about being on a submarine is there isn't the everyday phone call. So you are relying on your community. And I think that's different. So when people do move here and it's a new sailor, we want to make sure that we have the best schools and the tightest community. So it's really important because, again, it's a family getting dropped out that didn't have a family doctor and doesn't know the best place to shop is X, Y, and Z. They kind of relearn all these things. And I think us integrating with the Navy and showing how this all comes together in this one project is going to be beautiful.
That is our hope, and certainly the Master Chief and I are working hard to keep that focus. And I am quite confident that we'll get there. We've got the support from both the city and the town. We've got the design going forward for approval, and I'm quite confident that we'll be able to raise the money we need. We've raised about almost $500,000 so far. Yeah. We've spent some of that in doing the legwork. In order to get the site selected, we worked with the town of Groton, and we got an area adjacent to the library right near the senior center, so it's very nicely located to support the community. But in order to get that site, the foundation had to give money to the town of Groton so that the town of Groton could purchase the land from the state of Connecticut because it was in the right of way.
Embarrassingly that we had to do that.
No,
but it's part of it.
I understand.
Yep.
I mean, that's how it works, and we knew that going in.
Yep.
And frankly, one of the things that when the group was initially established, the guy who started it all was the commissioning commanding officer, Captain Bill Vogel, and they had a hard time finding what they thought was the best site. So that slowed them down a little bit.
I was on those committees
Yeah. Well,
as a counselor, and I think it found its right home. I do.
In my opinion, we got the best answer, although it took us longer than we wanted to.
Yeah, but I'd ask you, you could have a brick inside this monument for a few different things. I mean, you worked at Electric Boat, you both did,
right?
But serving, your family lived around here. There's all these different components that would really make you want to see a monument like this. But why is it important to you personally that you want to see this monument done?
Because we are the submarine capital of the world, and we need a nice sail to advertise that also.
Yeah.
We've got a signage up on the highway, but we need a sail where we can have ceremonies and people can come and visit it.
Yeah.
That's what we need. And even any small donations will help.
Absolutely. We're going to get, well, that's going to be, our website's going to be up. So we don't even have to talk about how to donate, because as we're speaking and having this conversation, the Groton Sail Foundation, you guys will see it up there on there now. You just go and Google and it'll bring you to Facebook. It gives you all the different opportunities. But I'll ask you the same question I asked, but what's it mean to you to have this, to know that, I think envisioning the day that it's done and we do the onshore christening, so to speak, what's that going to mean for you?
Well, I think it's a proper acknowledgement of the sustained superior excellence that has been demonstrated by the submarine community, and by that I include everything from the designers and builders to the grocery store who gives somebody a break because they're new to the community. And I really think that recognition is important. I think another important thing is that the sail, when we are done with the effort for installation, the sail will still be a part of the Submarine Force Museum responsibilities. And so that ties to the Submarine Force Museum down on the waterfront near the sub base,
Yep.
ties to the monument near the library. So I think that'll show that we're here, we're proud of what we do, and we're proud of the men and women who do it.
And I think back to one of my first committee meetings, knowing, and I'm a vendor, so I'm on the submarine base. I saw the USS Groton sail when it arrived. I know it's been in Alpha Lot for a while. I was excited, thinking, wow, this is Groton sail project. This is the USS Groton's going to be here. And I think the conversation started getting heavy on that it's the USS Groton. And in the meeting, you indicated, and now I can understand why. In the Midwest, both of you guys mentioned working with the Navy on the West Coast. This is every boat, every man and woman on deck type of effort. And you wanted to make sure that, although it is the USS Groton, which I think is very fitting to be back, that's one boat, one type of boat. I think you touched base, both of you guys touched base. Not everyone served on that type of boat. They did others. So we really want to recognize everybody. And I think in the meetings, it really comes across that's what you want to make sure that not just everyone's recognized, that every boat also.
But the sailors, they're qualified they wear dolphins.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what type of boat they were on. They wear dolphins.
That makes them qualified for any of the boats.
Any boat.
And when you go as a submarine qualified individual, when you go to a new ship, you know enough as a qualified submariner that you got to go figure out those things that are different from the last ship you were on.
Yeah.
The ballistic missile submarines that the Master Chief served on are more complicated in the midsection than the attack submarines that I served on. I remember when I was the engineer on a ballistic missile submarine, the missile compartment was magic land for me. I'd never seen it before. And so you'd be walking around and you go, holy smokes. And I know as a qualified submariner, I got to learn a lot about this place to make sure that I can get up to speed with everybody else. And so everybody's got a requalification program that they have. And usually it's self-energy generated, so that the incoming new person, even though they're not specifically qualified on a particular ship, knows enough that, hey, I got to go learn what I don't know.
And when you talk about qualifications, I think what most people don't realize is, because you didn't do it, if you weren't in the Navy and you didn't serve on a sub, I get to see incoming classes frequently because I am on base a lot. And these are very younger looking kids every single year. I mean, they're 18 in a lot of cases. And we service the damage control trainer, and we also work on the firefighter trainer. And I can only imagine the 18-year-old kid that came from the Midwest and actually never been on the ocean before, wondering why he has to learn how to patch a pipe with a wooden peg and a leather strap. But that's part of it. So I think a lot of people, I think there'd be a sense of anxiety. I don't know how, you guys obviously must have went through it. I'm sure they had those trainers. But when you're young and they're saying, okay, this is how you plug a hole on a boat if in a catastrophe, you must be thinking, why are they teaching me this?
Well, when I went through sub school, we didn't have these trainers.
None of the trainers.
We weren't, none of these trainers. We just had the tank, the escape tank that went down when they had a fire in the 70s. But now these kids have trainers.
Yeah.
And I get to speak at the graduation tomorrow at basic sub school. And then Monday I get to speak I'm the guest speaker at a TM graduation.
Excellent.
So we are back in sub school.
That's a torpedoman graduation,
At
right?
the torpedoman graduation, we're finally.
For the non-Navy guy. We'll tell
Non-Navy.
him.
There's a lot of non-Navy that'll listen. Now, there is a lot of Navy in this community. You wouldn't have had to explain any of that too.
Because my rate in the Navy was a torpedoman. We worked on the torpedoes and the torpedo tubes. And when we had the 41 for freedom, we worked in the missile compartment. We took care of the tubes in the missile compartment. Now with the big tridents, the MTs take care of them.
Yeah.
And the torpedomen take care of the tubes now.
To me, it's amazing to think that there's not this kind of training. In the world we live in now, and I think even back to when I got in construction, we built the firefighter trainer. I was in construction on the base in 1989. So I don't know if we replaced one. I can't remember, but maybe that was the first one where they started training. But to put all these people on a boat and then go down and not have the training maybe it was less scary because you didn't know that there was a possibility. I don't know what.
You trained on the boat. You trained
Oh, that
on
was
the boat
it.
instead.
Yeah.
Because when on the fleet boats, when you reported on the fleet boat, you had to do every guy's job. You could do that. But now on a nuclear powered boat, you can't go back in the engine room and do anything because you're not nuclear powered trained.
Yeah.
But the basic qualification now is damage control.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, damage control.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, damage control goes from bow to stern. And if there's a fire in the engine room, doesn't matter whether you're nuclear trained or not, you can open with a fire hose, you put the fire out. And I also think, for example, the hydraulic power plant is generally located very, very aft in the ship, but it supports the entire ship. So if you understand the hydraulic power plant, then you have to tie it all together to make sure you understand that the hydraulics that operates the torpedo tubes, that operates the various masts, that operates the fairwater planes and the stern planes and stuff, or the bow planes now. You have to really understand all of that. And that truly is, I think, is one reason that the submarine training is as effective as it is because you don't get just the chance to just say, we're only going to look at this. You have to look at all of it because this will affect what happens at the bow and at the stern.
Yeah, I had a chance to be part of a meeting, and it was basically, folks, just community members, and we had some folks from the Navy, and we're just kind of giving them an idea of how the ship works, and just so they know, because you just don't know if you don't know. And one of the community members asked I think it was a chief, said, "Well, I understand that you guys are on the boat and it's 24/7, but so you work your 8 hours, and then what do you do for the other 16 hours? Do you just kind of when you time off?" And I said, I haven't been on the boat, and it's no question is a dumb question. I never served on a ship. I said, I'm assuming it doesn't work like that.
You really don't have any time off because you're either working on the equipment, you're repairing it, or you're studying, going to school, lesson plans. That you really don't have any.
But then what? So you got to have sleep time.
They give you sleep time.
But pretty much you're just part of the boat.
But if you're going through a drill or something, you're up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think certainly the leadership team on the submarine works very, very hard to manage the rest requirement, to make sure that because if you're not well rested, you're not going to stand an alert watch.
Exactly.
And so, like the Master Chief said, you'll have your watch standing time, and then usually you'll eat just before watch, and you'll have another something to eat after watch, and then you might watch a movie if it's the evening, or you might go back and replace some O-rings in a hydraulic manifold or something, depending on what the maintenance schedule is. There's preventive maintenance. But I think I would add to the emphasis that the Master Chief said, basically you're training all the time. The ship is, unless the ship is on a specific mission, if you're underway, you're doing drills of some sort almost all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes they're small, sometimes they're full ship force wide. Sometimes there'll be a fire in the engine room, but you'll have the drill, and that means everybody's up putting out the fire. Sometimes it'll be just engineering drills where you lose a turbine generator perhaps. But basically there's training going on
Repetition
all the
makes a
time
boat run good.
But the officers and the enlisted leadership really do work hard to make sure that everybody's well rested when they go on watch.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that's got to be. There's so many things that you don't know. We're here talking about the Groton Sail Foundation, and it always floats back to me the conversation of your service, of what it meant to be on the boat and what it meant for the community. That's the important part. I think when people watch this and drive, and hopefully when they're driving by this monument, they'll understand why we did it, or why the whole community came together. The fact that you guys you retire. It's always ask the busy person if they can help, right? You don't ask the person that never shows up to anything, because they never show up to anything, and it's usually the same suspects. And part of that committee group, I mean, you've assembled, and I know it wasn't like you went and got everybody, but the committee, and just talk quickly about who we have on this board. I mean, you have former mayors, town managers, and EB employees. I think that's a lot to be said. I feel comfortable when you walk in, you see that kind of force.
No, I think it's great. Well, you see the experience that the Master Chief brings to the game. His very, very broad breadth of experience is very helpful, and his wisdom, just because he's seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
As you said, we have a former city of Groton mayor. We have a former town manager of Groton. We've got some former local government people like yourself who help us out. We've had the Groton historian is on our board.
Streeter.
And let's see, we have the former officer in charge of the Nautilus Museum is a board member. We have a couple of retired Navy captains who help us out. And again, the good news is nobody's trying to take credit for anything. We're just trying to be successful in getting this done. So if we need help, we just say, well, who can help there? And somebody will say, yep, I'll take that on. And
that's it.
We don't have much trouble getting the things done.
And Marion Galbraith called me and brought me in the fold on this, and I couldn't be more excited. We're on our last 30 seconds here. I told you this was going to go fast, and it did. So if you guys watch this at all and you want to become part of it or help in any way, we want to make this an inclusive effort, and I think that's what Rear Admiral was getting to, especially in our group. You can see how that's working. The website is right there. All you have to do, if you follow us on Facebook, that's what I'm going to ask you to today, is make sure when you go to Facebook, click the follow button and share, because we want to make sure that every person in the community actually has the chance and knows that this is something that's happening. Because I think if somebody goes to this sale later, they're going to wish that they had a brick in there. And I want to make sure everyone knows about it. And I don't think they're going to last long. So hopefully you guys go out there, go on, buy those bricks. Until next time, we'll see you guys next Thursday, Born Political, and hopefully see you at the sale ceremony when that happens. We'll let you know. Thanks a lot, everyone.